how do you, like, in a position where, for example, if you were to get pushback from your significant other, like, oh, maybe it's not the best time to go on a vacation or XYZ, is there something that comes to mind that you would say, that you would think of as like the appropriate
The truth.
response?
The truth. It's just the truth. And then, right, what happens with most people is that they don't have clear thinking. So when you say, you guys share your clarity.
Mm.
You guys say, this was gonna happen with move one, move two, move three, move four, move five. And if we go in this direction, move one, move two, move three, move four, move five. What life looks better?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, it's about decision making, and when you're making decisions, it's about what's going to be the best prediction. And it's about making sense. If it makes sense, then that gives it power. But if it doesn't make sense, it has no power.
Yeah.
So that's why I always ask good questions, and I always ask people to explain things to me. As long as it makes sense, I'm with it.
Yeah, I think after asking that question and you giving me that response, I think, like, in my perspective, putting it in my relationship, I feel like that's where I could create some more clarity as far as, like, together getting, like, sitting down and making some sort of, like, okay, this is what the plan looks like, or this is what, like, the goals look like, and we're gonna get there by taking these X and Y steps. You know what I mean?
Now let's go. Let's go. So now, right, think about dynamic complexity. That doesn't just go to corporations, that also goes to significant other relationships. It's about helping someone see. But it's not about how much you can see, it's about them seeing. And what's that process look like? That process is not on your time. That process is on their time.
Right.
So, therefore, right, what you're supposed to do is add to that awareness so they can go and arrive at the understanding. Your job is to give. That's it. Just give. And in time, they arrive at it. How many times have we had a conversation and it's not during the conversation, but as you start living, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, every time we have an interaction, some sort of conversation, I go out into the world and I'm, like, growing and experiencing, and then that's where it's like the dots are all connecting for me.
Now think about how it's because you're open. What about if you're closed? Can that happen?
No?
Your mind will never show you. So you have to be open. But a lot of people, they're so closed off, they want to hold on to that fixed truth that they have, as in supposed to looking for what's the best truth. And the best truth, you'll know it because the life around you will have a positive outcome.
Right.
If it's real, life gets better. If it's not real, life does not get better. And then always have a point of reference. Then sometimes you gotta let the mistake occur because someone cannot have understanding over something they haven't made a mistake on.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
Sure.
once they make that mistake, then the understanding comes because now they have a point of reference. Now they're like, all right, I made this mistake. Okay, now I can see it. But before the mistake, could you see it?
Oh.
That's why there's that analogy that failure is the mother of all success. Because once you fail at something, that means that you can see it. You can see what's good, what's not good, what works, what doesn't work. You have insight. But you
Yeah.
can't create insight over what you don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that on occasions, even framed in a slightly different way, where it's like, all right, if I've had 100 failures, I just know 100 ways that didn't work, and so that's a good thing that you know the ways that didn't work. So you just got to keep seeking for the ways that will work for you in whatever aspect it is, whether it's business or, maybe love. I suppose there's you have an experience and knowledge on what didn't work and what wasn't maybe like your truth in that aspect.
But let's take it further. Not working is working.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's all about the knowing. So every single time you add to your knowing, you're expanding, which teaches you what to do and what not to do. I'd rather fail and know what to do and what not to do than to not experience and have no idea what I should or shouldn't do. Life is about, you know, what's inside you, growing it, having perspective, having good judgment, being able to make great decisions. That's what you want. I want to say as entrepreneurs, right? Probably the best way to explain it, that's what it comes down to. You're a fast decision maker that actually goes and gets results. You're a problem solver. Except that you've grown to a place that you're no longer solving problems for yourself. Now you're solving problems for people. You're looking beyond yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to. But the only way to get there is to always look at life like someone who's responsible for others. Someone, I tell people all the time, before I was an entrepreneur, then where I worked, I treated it like it was my own, like if I was the owner. Because I was already living my future truth. I already knew who I wanted to be. Therefore, when you know who you want to be, you're speaking like that person, you're acting like that person, you're doing things like that person. And even though when I was at, my other jobs prior to being an entrepreneur, I was already in that perspective of owner. I always did my best. I always built relationships. I always gave it my all.
Right.
Because the skills that I forged during that time, the level of understanding that I synthesized, my ability to reason, my ability to have good judgment, my ability to problem solve, was because I took everything on.
Yeah. You took ownership of it. That's great. So, and that brings me to a point where I'm interested about knowing. This is real common right now to be talking about AI and things of that nature. And I find myself in a position that I feel real optimistic about it. And even more so because this week I was having, or not having, but watching a conversation actually with the guy that I mentioned last week on his podcast. His name is Lex Friedman, MIT, graduate, and he's an engineer. And so the person that he brought on this week made a really interesting point, and that it almost made me even more excited to a certain extent, where the guy basically was talking about how if we assume that this AI technology is getting smarter and smarter and that it's going to compound and it's going to get to the point where, let's say, it takes over, if that's the inevitable point in that aspect. So what does that lead us, or what does that lead him to understand? And he broke it down in a way where it's like it's going to humble everybody. It's going to humble the world to the point where it's like, let's say if it were to wipe out jobs, which is like one of the hot topics. It's like, okay, so what are going to happen to all these jobs? And so he put it in a framework where it's like, yeah, people are going to be humbled and they're going to realize that the humanitarian work that's left to do is so abundant. There's so much on a person level to be done that it's like, if that's the inevitable and it's going to happen where AI takes over, then likely there's no way around that. It's just fate, the way that it's supposed to be. So, but it's going to put us to have to reframe what we hold true and value. And I think it's what we're doing in this space, and I believe it's what you try to do out of this space. And I as well try to do that, on a humanitarian level, just through conversation. The same things that we were talking about, or that you brought to me my attention. It's like when I'm reading these things that I'm reading and that I'm taking notes on, go out into the world and express these ideas, these thoughts, these new truths to other people in conversation, And so I've done that throughout this week, and that glimpse that I was able to get out of that conversation, it almost made me like, oh yeah, I'm even more optimistic about it, because it's like, if I didn't have this camera anymore because now it's an AI or XYZ, then it's like there's still you and I left out there, and there's a considerable amount of hurting in the world as far as I see it. There's a considerable amount of people that need guidance, that maybe either for lack of resources or lack of XYZ, there's nobody there really to support them. You see these people on the streets, you see these people that, don't have clean resources for water or any of those other resources that we kind of like take for granted sometimes in like our nation. And so it's like, man, if everything was wiped out, there's so much work, real work, like important stuff to do, that it's like, I think that's bigger than the AI, and it is a refreshing framework to try to look at it in that perspective, where it's like, all right, now we got to get down on our hands and knees and pretty much like dig into the nitty gritty. But I feel like we're doing that. We've started that process here, and so it's gonna be like this global shift as it progresses. So I don't know if you have like an insight on that, or what you think about that whole.
Well, when it comes to AI, it's a tool. The reality is, if you're open to it, what I can see, it's gonna make the human life experience better. When it does get rid of certain jobs, all those type of jobs, a lot of them are redundant. They're not really life. What I think is going to be a beautiful part is that for human beings in general, they're going to be able to now focus on the experiences. And for us as people, what we pick up as we live life are impressions. So what's going to happen to us as people when we're creating and synthesizing better impressions for the human experience? And how will our consciousness that we still can't even wrap around evolve? The only thing I can see is all of us becoming more. And I like the idea of how it says to humble. And I say it because I do believe it's going to make people have a better outlook at life. I think people will definitely become more positive. Because if you have a feeling of entitlement, then it's very hard to be positive, because you never have known that experience. You've never had it inside you. And AI can only be used as a tool. Just because AI is around doesn't mean that as a human being you have to now stop developing. I think the most beautiful part is that it really gives us an opportunity to continue to develop, to continue to expand our internal growth. When you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, what happens when you completely get rid of need? Then as people, we're led to be our most creative self. We could focus on the arts. We could focus on development, evolution. Then what does life become like? When we're focusing on creating experiences for all of us. When we're focusing on tapping into human consciousness. Because so many people are unaware. So many people, their beliefs that they currently carry are the ones that have been imprinted on them, and they don't even know. So what happens when people can develop their unconscious bias? What happens when people can self-observe better? Now, when it comes to AI is great when it's asked the right question. you still need an evolved human being to ask the right questions. So no matter what, you need people to read, you need people to write, you need people to have conversations so that the right questions can be born. Because if you don't know what you want, if you don't know what your moral highest personal ideal is, it's impossible for you to ask the right questions. And the only way to do that is to develop yourself and for you to evolve who you are. My question is, what will human beings who are at that level of understanding, what will they create with AIs as the tools? Because no matter what, as amazing as an AI is, it'll never understand human consciousness because it's not a conscious entity. Therefore, the question is, what will the symbiotic of consciousness with a supercomputer, what will that bring to the world? Now, of course, that's just my outlook.
Right.
And that's, me thinking best case scenario. But am I going to assume worst case scenarios? Absolutely not.
Yeah, and that's precisely how I feel like I've tried to frame it. It's like, why does it have to be? Because prior to this, conversation that I was hearing through these two individuals, I tried to dumb it down, maybe I guess a bit more for myself, where I'm like, well, if we are humans and we're these beings that are going about their days trying to search for whatever goal it is that we're going after, either in our jobs or spiritually, and there's these other beings that live amongst us. I always associated it back to like ants, for example. It's like ants have their thing. They're doing what it is that they're doing in their communities or in their environments, and they're living amongst us. So it's like, why can't we live amongst whatever else we've created and now has grown or surpassed us? So I tried framing it for myself in that aspect, simply because maybe I'm just that optimistic of a person. But I also don't like to think that it has to be a negative, that we can coexist. And it only reaffirmed that because it's like, okay, well, if the bond between humanity needs to be stronger, then maybe through this thing that we've created, and that wasn't the intention, it's gonna force us to resort to like, okay, now how do we mature as a collective on this earth? You know what I mean? Like, how do we grow our like unison across the globe, across the nation, and stuff like that? And I don't know, I feel like the way he framed it, it seems like it could force our hand in that direction.
Well, when it comes to people, you always got to remember the dynamic complexity. The only way that you're going to see that level of unity is just with time. Maturity. Because when you look back at history, you have to look at it as in we've been maturing as a species. The way an infant matures into an adult and into a senior citizen. It just comes with time. Our race, humanity itself, just needs just more time.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I don't know how it came up in conversation, like amongst my family, but I believe it was my grandma at some point was saying like, oh yeah, I remember when XYZ, and it was a story about how kids, when she was raising kids and they were newborns, it was like 6 or 7 days before they even opened their eyes or something to that extent, or whatever, that they were able to feed them and stuff like that, versus now you see them, like in the case of my son, he had some milk that he was drinking that was given to him at the hospital within the first 24 hours or something like that. I couldn't tell you exactly, but that's a difference that we've seen through evolution, and there's plenty of examples of that throughout society.
Yeah, so AI itself, it's something that Like anything else, research it, learn it. It's gonna be like any craft. You know, the difference will be is whether you learn how to use the tool or you didn't learn how to use the tool. But ultimately, what I believe is it's gonna just create more experiences for life. You know, as people, we should really be creators. We should really be artists, Renaissance people. That's what life should be. It shouldn't be all this hurry. It shouldn't be all this, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, you know. And, you know, just kindness. Like as people, we should just be kind. Yeah. We've gotten into this place right now in society that it's, look at me. Look at what I'm doing. Look at what I did. Look at who I beat. Look at what I surpassed. What it should be, from my perspective, is that what can I do for the greater good? Ultimately, when you're thinking about the greater good, and the greater good, the best way to explain it is something that makes everyone feel good. I'm not gonna say like, hey, this is the way, this is the right rule, no, it should bring peace to everyone around. That's the greater good. There's no words for it, because even words themselves, right, as we use them, words are meant to translate meaning, to translate a feeling. Like, hey, listen, this is what I feel, and this is I'm transferring my feeling to you through these words.
Right.
You know, because that's what communication is. It's a transference of feelings. But people need to start asking what is the greater good. But unfortunately, the greater good keeps getting lost through self-interest. A lot of people start with the perspective of the greater good. A lot of people start with the perspective that I'm doing the right thing and I'm thinking about others. But the question is, once their needs are met, once they reach a status, are they still that same person?
Yeah, it seems like they change. As far as I'm concerned, it seems like that.
Yeah, a lot of people, you would think they change, but then all of a sudden now their behavior retracts. Now all of a sudden that ego that they killed so they can reach this level, now all of a sudden it makes its way back. Then you have others who they come off and they're like, hey, let me help this greater good, right? But unfortunately, through their talent, they develop entitlement. If I can tell you, using my organization, the ones that, you know, we've all built together, right? Like, you're a blessing. Preston's a blessing. Shanae's a blessing. There's so many. Everyone's a blessing. But every once in a while, we'll get someone who comes in and they might have talent, but they really care about credit, validation, recognition.
Why do you think that happens, or what do you think is the wrong in that?
Honestly, it's just human nature, and they just need more time to develop. We go through stages.
But how does that hurt them, or how does that hurt anyone? Like,
well, if they model the wrong thing for the people around them. You know, ultimately, what about if you take someone off their path? So this environment, it really encourages people to develop into their full potential and to seek their greatest possibilities and highest personal moral good for their life structure so that they can become the authors of their lives. And what ends up happening is if you go and you show someone the wrong behavior and you're a leader and that person doesn't come back because they weren't aligned with your moral compass, it's a tragedy. You're taking someone's opportunity away because they saw ego in you. Now that person will never get to be what they should have been. Because chances are, before they trust another environment that encourages, it doesn't happen. And then you might even have someone who, for 6 months, they might do the most amazing job. And they might really help a lot of people. But now they want more and they expect more without the perspective that they had no skin in the game. That before those 6 months happened, there were 4.5 years prior to that. That a lot of sacrifices took place. A lot of work that they didn't get to observe and see. A lot of construction that happened, a lot of building without them being there. But that's also has to do with the maturity of an individual. Because you're not thinking big. Your perception just isn't there yet where you're able to see and assess situations like that. Then the idea that if things are going good and it looks effortless, maybe it's because everyone around is just working that hard.
Yeah.
We make it look easy, but it's because it's that much effort and that much work. And we're also not stopping to say, oh my God, look how much work I'm doing, or look how much I'm doing, or this and that. What's the point of that?
Yeah.
So it's a perspective, the same way you have entrepreneurs, it's the same way you have entrepreneurs. Amazing people that come in, if you can attract them into your organization, they think like owners. They're here to bring value. For us at Get Fitness, Shanae is our entrepreneur. She's helping develop a company because she sees what the future looks like. She knows.
Yeah.
You're an entrepreneur. Look at the work that we're doing together.
Yeah.
Jack is an entrepreneur. Look at the work that he's doing on the website. We've been so fortunate to have collected so many entrepreneurs, including the ones I haven't named. Because we came up with this idea and we all believe in it. And we're all growing this idea as it continues to spread. As it continues to become bigger. I got a phone call yesterday, and this was from our student Dolly, who had a Get Fitness sweater on, and somebody at the mall, as she was shopping, stopped her, and she's like, hey, that's Juan Vargas' thing.
Nice.
And, she's like, I had to share with her. She goes, yeah, that's my friend. Him and the whole gift team, like the things that they're doing are incredible. The way they're inspiring. Yeah, he's so cool. And in my mind, she's telling me this. I'm in shock because, I'm just doing. I'm not thinking like things like this are gonna happen, but that's the energy. Then today we had another student. She says she started crying. When I come here, I just feel like I'm understood. I always choose to be happy, and people never understand that. But when I come here, I feel understood. And the level of growth that I've had here, this is my happy place. This is where I come to recharge. And that's the evidence of the work. When it comes to the physical fitness, let me tell you, from our perspective, we're the best. But we also don't look left, we don't look right. We're just focusing on what we do. And what we do in the world, we're the best at what we do. But when you get the mental, the emotional combination with the physical, and you just see the energetic fitness, that's the evidence of the work. And the stories are just more and more. So many lives change. 5 years into business, we've changed thousands of lives. What happens when it becomes millions?
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it takes time.
But on the front of like, how do you go about taking in the compliments and stuff like that? Where now you've gotten this phone call, and I'm saying this in the aspect for the people now that are like, maybe they're a bit more developed. They're listening to these insights that we're giving them, and so now they find themselves in environments where it's like, they're getting compliments and X Y Z. And I'm also framing this from like personal, on a personal aspect, where it's like I have a hard time sometimes where I go into an environment and I'm showered with compliments, maybe because a great job that I did, or putting the right people in the room to create something that was awesome. So I have a hard time accepting it, like, thanks, but I'm just being, like, I don't really need the compliments. And but at the same time, I don't want to act like, I don't want to push it away, you know what I mean? So I don't know how you frame that for yourself.
Use the energy. Use the energy to feel the work. Because automatically, it's someone giving you energy. Now, what you don't want to do is what some others do, is like they start getting these compliments and they start achieving and succeeding, and they lose their humility. They lose their drive. All of a sudden they want to get comfortable. They think about the needs and comforts of life. Don't do that. Don't get into a place where you get, it becomes like a fake confidence. And the reason why it's a fake confidence, because the moment you think that you gotta stop working hard on what you do on a day-to-day basis, the moment that you stop thinking that now I don't have to earn my days anymore, no. Well, we're alive, we have to earn every day.
Yeah, certainly.
Every day it needs to be earned. It doesn't just automatically say, all right, I reached these achievements, that's it. No, that's not meaning and fulfillment. Real leadership is everyone around you changing.
Yeah.
Everyone's life around you being amazing. If it's just your life, you're not a leader.
Yeah, that's precisely why. I mean, I feel like that was the one thing from the conversation that I was hearing, where the guy was speaking about, being humanitarian. Like, I could see that for me, but I could see that being very challenging, per se. And I don't know these individuals, but my perception of some of them would be like, higher ups, these executives or XYZ, anybody that you could think of that has amassed a lot of wealth, but now has fallen back to exactly what you were saying. The ego is what's driving them again, or maybe that's how they also got there. But if in any fact it's now in their presence again, that whole ego, I feel like them relinquishing that and going back down to like, oh man, this person needs of me, just the human to human contact. I felt like that was the only part where I'm like, man, like, it'll be easy for me to go out there and strap on some boots, but my perspective is, or my perception is, that I feel like it would be very difficult for those people. Like, they would have a rude awakening, per se.
So with them, feel bad for them. No meaning, no fulfillment. You can have all the monetary in the world, but that will never give your life joy, purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. It's not where it comes from.
Right.
Like, if we are energy, it's not a thing that's going to give me that energy.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. It's a conversation. It's human to human interaction. Now, this is where it all comes down to, right? And this is probably the best way to explain it. If love is free, right? Love is freedom.
Yeah.
Right?
It's free, it's freedom. Yeah.
Can I feel loved if I control and pay everyone around me? Is that real?
No.
Is that essence?
Wow. Yeah.
Love is free.
Yeah.
And free will, that's real. Therefore, my point is, it's if I'm receiving love from someone, it's because they're choosing to give me that of their own volition. They're contributing their love to me. And it becomes reciprocal, the relationship. When I have a conversation with someone, this conversation, whenever I speak to this human being, gives me energy, fuels me up. I fuel them up.
Wow.
Everyone's a giver in these relationships.
Yeah.
Now, if I know that someone's listening to me because I pay for their service, that's not love. If I know someone's listening to me because in some way or another they depend on me, that's not love. Because love is free. The question is, when someone doesn't need from you, do they choose to love you?
Yeah.
And that's love. Because at the same time, if they're choosing to love you and they don't need from you, that says something about your character and who you are.
Now, I'm curious though, and there's a way to frame that in part of what you're saying. But I was having a conversation with a real good friend of my brother's actually last night. We were together, just the guys watching the fight, and he's over here talking to us about like, you know, he's been in this job for 9 years. Seemingly, it's a job that anytime I've ever seen him in that environment, he's incredibly excited about. You know, he feels real animated and he feels, you know, real engaged with what's going on. But over the course of I don't know exactly how long, but I know over the last 2 months, I don't know when it started, but I know over the last 2 months, he was going through some turbulent times mentally, like intrapersonal. And so with for him, it was a moment where he realized, wow, like these people that I thought were gonna have my back in such a like turbulent time in my life, seemingly could care less. I mean, like it's talking to us about like, you know, I'm talking to my boss and it's like, I'll tell her, man, I know you really need me. Give me a couple days. I'll be back Thursday. It's Tuesday, and now they're already talking about, are you going to be back tomorrow, which is Wednesday, not the day they agreed on. Like, I've already told you, I can't do this right now. I need some time away. But because I know you need me, I'll come in this particular day. But now, ahead of that, you're already, you know, not appreciating me or not validating me. I could imagine it's like the emotions he's going through, you know, and that interconflict that he's having, and it's incredible. And so, man, having that conversation with him last night was very eye opening, and it's things that I've known working in a like a corporation. But man, it's like it's pretty devastating when it's like somebody so close, and I'm glad that he's able now to take some time off and he's sorted all of those things out and he's feeling much better seemingly because, you know, physically you could tell like, man, it's taking a toll on him. I haven't seen him in like 2 years. And when I'm looking, he's telling me this, but I'm also observing it on him. He doesn't look like the animated person that I'm used to seeing. You know what I'm saying? So that was rough to see in the flesh. You know, so close in my life.
So with something like that, is we go through periods of change in life. We're forever evolving. If you would have asked me, was I going to be in the fitness business 10 years ago, I would have told you, no way. Now, I spent the first part of my life working in bars, nightclubs, restaurants, fine dining, you name it, you know, and I did every single position you could think of because, again, I thought like an owner. I wanted to know everything from bar backing to bartending, waiter, manager, mixologist, DJ. Like I did the whole thing inside out, right? But what happened was that one day I got behind the bar. And I mean, like, I loved it. Even after I worked every position, I was like, all right, behind the bar, that's my thing. That's my stage.
Okay.
I said, no, that's it. And then I veered into here. All our experiences, what we're doing is, as people, we're transcendent. So we're information. So all we're doing is collecting data. And then it becomes pattern recognition. So as we go through our life, it's like a hero's journey. You're going into all these different environments. You're mastering these different environments, these different conflicts. And eventually you go and you synthesize this way of being, this archetype of who you are. And then you discover exactly how you're going to present that to the world. And once you present it to the world, now you're moving forward on that. But unfortunately, a lot of people, they get the substance, but they never take that next step. Because, you know, what does that mean, that next step? That means that before you take that next step, you got to ask yourself, has anyone ever become wealthy being an employee? Or have they become wealthy because they become an entrepreneur and business person?
Yeah.
But can you just go and from night and day go become an entrepreneur and a business person?
No.
There's a lot of skills that you need.
For sure. For sure.
Best way to do it is you go help someone achieve their dream as an entrepreneur, and you go learn skills from that person because you're spending all the time next to that person. Mm-hmm. And then you go do it.
Yeah.
Because what I can tell you is I worked for a lot of different mentors of mine who are still friends today, who still give me advice, who still guide me today, and I'm always open to them. But what you see before you is not me, it is a representation of all the amazing people I've met in my lifetime and the ones who have taken the time to push me and point the right direction.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, and then, right, then you become an entrepreneur, right? So now you went from being in the pond, now we're in the lake, right? And then you master your lake. Well, guess what? There's still an ocean out there.
The ocean's pretty big.
So now it becomes different. Now it's not that you're an entrepreneur. Now you're an organization who needs to go and expand your relationships and do great work and contribute with other organizations and come together with other organizations. Mm-hmm. And now we're in the ocean. With Get Fitness, we've been around now 5 years. Now we're doing collaborative work with other organizations and other networks. And it keeps growing from there. Yeah. We find other organizations that our visions and missions, they align. We're in alignment. And we go through great things together. Because the same way it takes great people to make a great business, it takes great organizations to make impact in the world. But there's steps, and you cannot skip.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to say, hey, I got the energy. I got the emotion to do it. But no, listen. Show me that you got the discipline to do it.
Right.
Show me that you got the discipline to do the steps.
Yeah.
Stop telling me, because what you're doing, I can't hear you. I can't. And sometimes, you know, like people do get upset with me, but it's not. I'm not gonna lie to them,
Right.
because I'm doing them an injustice. You know, because what I can tell you is every single year I can look back on my calendar, I can tell you how much I did. I can tell you that the people that are around me, they all did alongside me. And they did things without me. I can tell you that we're always doing.
Certainly.
We're never talking. Nobody's ever talking about it. Nobody's ever saying like, hey, you know, like, no. Nobody's ever saying that, hey, if I had the chance, or if I had this, if I had that, guess what? When we didn't have this or that, we created it. Oh, this is what we need? Okay. Action. Now we need that? Action.
Yeah.
But it's not talk. You know, and that's the kind of thing. Now, what happens when you have a world that's constantly moving and taking action? And it's evolving, it's taking the right steps. So with your friend, right now, he's at a transition. That place no longer fulfills him.
Yeah.
And now he really gets to see who they are. Now that he's not meeting their criteria, their requirement level, now that he actually needed to be picked up, now he sees. No matter who you work for, or no matter who you work alongside of, or no matter who you collaborate with, it's about their nature. See what their nature is. Just pay attention to behavior. You know, like someone might treat you amazing because guess what? You guys are doing great business together. But pay attention to how they treat the people that they're not doing great business with, so you can see who they are.
Yeah.
And then take it from there. And with your friend, it's his body, it's his spirit. It's screaming at him, hey, I need something different.
No, definitely. Like I could physically see his body is rejecting the environments that he's in, which is like the representation of what I saw essentially, especially after what he told me. It's like, oh, that's a clear sign that like whatever environment you're in is taking more from you than you're able to give. So yeah, definitely. I wish I could have now framing it like that, especially, you know, I was just hearing him out because clearly he needed somebody to like just vent to and speak to last night. But that's, you know, when the time is right, that's something that definitely I'll be able to give to him some. Like, hey, you're taking the much needed time that you need for yourself right now, but in this time, take it to also reflect. And if there's something that your heart speaks to you about that you would like to try to pursue, right now would be the best time more than ever to try to do that whenever you feel like it's right, because you've already taken the hardest step out of a 9-year job salaried career where you were the manager at. You're already out of that for the time being, so it's like, why put yourself back in that environment if you know already and you've had these clear signs, these indications that the environment probably wasn't the best for you.
And that's what life is, you know. We're constantly evolving, we're constantly growing, we're constantly expanding. As human beings, we're always gonna want to expand. We're always gonna want more. You know, comfort to a human being is death. It's such a huge thing. You know, it goes back to what we're talking about with the complimenting and the praise. You know, it goes again to I'm too busy doing to really stop to think about the praise. I'm grateful and I'm thankful for the energy, and I use it not to reflect on, oh man, like look who I am. No, I use it to say I need to do more.
Yeah.
And with that, and with his situation, now it's time for him to evolve. He has to get uncomfortable, because his body forced him to get uncomfortable so he could see clear. Because his unconscious mind already saw what those people were about before his conscious mind let him see it.
Right.
That was his unconscious mind pushing him, like, hey, listen, it's time.
Yeah.
I've seen enough.
Certainly.
Because your unconscious mind also protects you.
Yeah, that's amazing. Quite frankly, you made me aware of that last week. Now framing it in that aspect, it's like, wow, it's powerful what your unconscious can do for you, and try to protect you, observing all the things that you seemingly go unmissed, but really it captured.
It captures everything. We're always capturing information, whether we know it or we don't. That's why the most powerful teaching tool is an environment. Without you even realizing it, you're going to capture things. Life is simplicity. Find something you love, build on it,
Right.
turn it into purpose, something that you deliver to others. Find some great people to do that alongside with. Find some great people from different industries at your level, so that way there could be a perception exchange, which will only keep broadening your pattern recognitions within your brain to see opportunities, possibilities, and potentials. And love fearlessly. Love fearlessly. Life's too short to feel any other emotion. It's too short.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of getting hurt. Because even when you get hurt, you create that.
Oh, that's deep. Could you add more to that?
Yeah, absolutely. End of the day, right? If your expression is love and you're giving, the only way that that can hurt is if you're disappointed that something's not reciprocated. So if you're gonna give, just give. Give to give. Don't give to tell someone, hey, but I gave you this. Or I did this for you. Oh, what about this? No, that's just you. You're being you. You're just being you.
Right.
And if someone doesn't appreciate and value your love, how can you want that? If someone wants to continue the misconception that love is scary, that love is hurtful, that love is something to be feared, no, love is amazing. Love is proof that you're a human being and you're alive.
Yeah.
Those overwhelming feelings are the most beautiful things you'll ever experience in your life, because it's the only feelings that will give you actual meaning to your life. And if you don't feel that, then you lived a very dull life. You live a very repressed life. Been very resentful. You've been paranoid. Be open and love open. Be fearless with your love. Be fearless. Have no fear to give your love out. Because then you have really lived. And when someone leaves, if your expression of love is magical, is pure, what did you lose? What did you lose, really? See, the problem is that people get possessive with love. So if someone leaves their life, right, because things don't work out, and this doesn't just have to do even with another person, like in an intimate relationship. This has to do with family, friends, business, associations, every type of relationship you could think of in life. If someone couldn't appreciate your expression of love, let them go. Something better will take its place. Something better will take its place. The idea that someone puts their perspective that I will never find something this good again is such a limitation that people put on themselves. No, you're limitless. If you achieve that level and that experience of love, you have to believe you've gotten better and you'll experience something even better.
Right.
You have to believe that there's someone out there and who's taking the same level of preparation as you have.
Certainly.
Who has developed a high level of understanding, because a lot of the time when love doesn't work is because the understanding isn't there. You know, that's when you have like codependency and possessiveness, like, you know, jealousy, envy. You know, when love is associated with those emotions, it's not good love. And the idea, because you cannot have a specific person in your life that you cannot love, because of that doesn't make sense to me. Real love is free. I'd rather be in my present moment and appreciate someone to the best of my ability than to have the fear that they might not be there in the future, that they might not be there, so I don't want to show them this part of me. No, I'd rather them see me. And more importantly, I'd rather experience them at my highest state of love and being. I'd rather enjoy that presently. And if it grows into that, amazing. If it doesn't, it's still amazing because it just wasn't the right level of understanding and compatibility and compromising in that relationship. And that's okay. But when that person thinks of me, they know that I really appreciate them. I really love them right. And that allows me to also be open for what my next human experience is. Because the most magical thing we get to experience is life. And I'm only going to live one. I ain't holding back. I'm going all out. I'm giving it all. Every time. Every time. I'm just not going to worry.
Right.
Someone who's outside of me is going to do whatever they're going to do. I let people be. The right person will appreciate it.
Right.
The right person will value it. And sometimes you have to also understand that because of someone's unconscious bias, they're going to be afraid. They're going to be terrified of what you have because it's pure. They're so used to the bare minimum. They think that that's the normal. And even if fear gets them and they step away from you, at least you give them the opportunity to know what love is. So when they grow, they know what it is.
Yeah.
Because if you love someone, you want them to be happy anyway, even if it's not with you. Because if you're thinking best possible outcomes, you're going to end up being happy with someone else anyway.
Right.
So why would you not want to wish the best for them too?
Yeah, it's always been an interesting like observation that I've made. And it was hard for me to get over, you know, like as a kid, whatever you try to tell yourself, like,